Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Harihi Om. I'm so happy to connect back for yet another session. I'm Santosh, and on behalf of Madhvacharya for the Youth, I welcome all of you to the 123rd workshop and a very happy Independence Day. While I set the context, I want to give you a small recap into our previous topics that we touched upon. We started off with a core topic on the nine tenets of Madhva philosophy, a critical platform building session in knowing Madhva philosophy. From there, we started to know who is God. We looked at God, us, and the destiny and the material world that we live in. We went into a self discovery mode by asking, who am I? We started asking, what's our purpose? What's our identity? What's to know of oneself? And from there to today's topic, which is the most debated topic, or most of us keep asking frequently, which is what's my purpose in this life? As we go deep into this topic, we also think about why have we come into this world, what we must definitely do, what does success really mean, and is there any simple tools that we can adopt to arrive at this purpose? So let me tell you, it's not so easy, but with constant persistence, complete faith in God, having the right guru, and having some of the tools, I'm sure we'll be taken closer to what we are seeking for. So, with this context in place, so let's begin our session by introducing our today's speaker, Mr. Sunder Madakshira. Sundar is currently working at Adobe as head of marketing and also being mentored by well-known scholar Sri Prabhanjanacharya and Shrikantachar Payari. So I request all the viewers to actively participate, and as we keep chatting, please keep your questions handy or drop it in the comment section so that we can pick it up. So with this, let's begin. Hi Sundar.
Namaskara, ಎಲ್ರಿಗೂ. Hello, Santosh. Very nice being back with the 123rd workshop of Madhvacharya for the Youth. I hope all our viewers are safe and healthy and are looking forward to this workshop. This is a topic which has come to us as a request many times, and I'm glad that we are having this workshop today.
Thanks, Sundar. So moving on, I would request you to dive deep in this topic, which is what is the purpose of life. So
Sure.
I think we can have a small recap into by starting with to know who am I. So we constantly debated about this topic. So can we just start by asking who am I?
Yes. So, Santosh, I think you bring up a very important point on the context. Um, so let me go back. Let me go back almost a year and a half back when we started a series of these workshops, and there was an overwhelming request for us to understand, get really deep on some of the core topics of the philosophy. And when you talk about the core of the philosophy, it is always the Vedas. The entire Indian scripture stands on a very strong foundation of the Vedas. The four Vedas are like the foundation stone, and the higher one wants to go in on the spiritual world and touch the sky, he will have, or he or she will have to dig deeper to build a very strong foundation, right? We have used this analogy before. Whenever a building is to be constructed, the first thing the civil engineers will plan is how many floors will the building have, or how tall will the building go. And for that, they will have to first decide how deep they have to go with their foundation. So the depth of the foundation actually determines the height of the building. So similarly, it has been our journey. We started off by talking about how do you understand the Vedas. Now, what is the challenge with the Vedas? The Vedas are infinite and they are abstract, and they appear to be at contradiction with each other. So you need a framework, a way to understand this rather complex topic, and that is none other than the Brahma Sutras, the the fantastic creation of none other than Sri Vedavyasa himself. So the person who divided the Vedas, that's why he's called the Veda Vyasa, he wrote the Brahma Sutras. So from then on, we started this journey, and it has been a scintillating journey for all of us, even preparing for this workshop. It starts almost a month before the date of the workshop, and it's an enjoyable journey to study the Brahma Sutras, to study Brahma Sutra Bhashya by Madhvacharya and by so many other learned gurus, and to look at the fantastic commentaries that have come to us. Now, again, the challenge with the Brahma Sutra and the Bhashya is that it needs to be studied. So we got this idea a few months back where we said, how about sharing the best lessons or the extract that is coming from these Brahma Sutras and Brahma Sutra Bhashya and Tattva Prakashika by Sri Jaitirtha, and share it with everybody, and basically address some common questions that we get from our participants who are growing every day. And so, what we said was, we will start with the topic called Who Am I? And then we will get into this topic about what is my purpose. And then we will follow it up with the workshop that's going to succeed this about how do I reach my purpose. So, in today's workshop, even if you have not attended the workshops earlier, this workshop should mean something to you, right? So, let's start with a bit of a recap about where we defined as who am I. This is the first question that we all ask ourselves. So the way we structure this workshop is that we will go through who am I, then we'll talk a little bit about what is my purpose and what's the difference between purpose and other goals that we have, and finally we'll come to how to find that purpose, which is probably the crux of what we are all asking ourselves. But before we get into that, we need to know who we are. And sometimes we ask this question, am I my body? Is this my body? So when somebody calls you and say, who are you? We invariably say, you give your name and you say you are, you use your designation or some other identity we have. I'm so and so's son, I work in this company, I'm so and so husband, so and so's wife, so and so's mother, or what have you, right? We so and so's father, it could be anything that comes to us. Depending on the context, we give that introduction. So if you're going to your child's school, somebody asks you who you are, you'll say, I'm this child's father or mother or whatever, right? And then that's how it sort of becomes your identity slowly. But is that who we really are, or is it something else? So all these identities that I mentioned have largely got to do with our body, the fact that the physical structure that is there. So that is not the real I. So I am not the body. Next we come to the brain. So maybe it is the intellect, whatever we think, maybe we are that. To some extent, yes, we are the body, we are also the intellect, but that is not the only intellect, because you have an identity even when you don't have that intellect, right? And after that intellect, so you're not the body, you're not the brain. Then comes the ego, right? Ego is like a facade that the body creates to give itself safety, right? So this is what is called ego. So is that ego? Am I ego? I am calling myself as something because of that ego which I had. So that is also not true, because many times we look at a situation and we do not have that ego. Yet our identity does not change. We have not become a different person, right? We are the same. That means again we are not the ego. Then what are we? Are we our mind, which is probably the most subtle of everything? So yes, are we our mind? Whatever comes to our mind, is am I that or am I something else? Again, it's very clear that not everything that you are can be understood even by defining yourself as mind. So we are not the mind. Many times we do not have our mind in the right place. So sorry, I was absent minded. We use the word absent minded. Doesn't mean that you don't exist. You very much exist, but you are, your mind was not at the right place, or you're not thinking consciously about it. So therefore, we are not the body, we're not the brain, we are not the ego when we are not the mind. So what are we really? We are nothing but the soul. The soul which is there inside the body, in the deepest corner of our body, in our heart. Many people ask this question, where is the soul rest? The soul is actually in our heart. It's called hridaya, hridisthita. So it is inside the heart, and it's in a small pinhole kind of a place. But Then you say, no, but soul is giving life to the entire body. So it's the example that's given in our shastras is that of a lamp. The lamp is in one part of the body, or of a room, but it lights up the entire room. Just imagine totally dark room, and suddenly you bring the lamp and keep it in a corner. That's good enough. The whole room then becomes bright. So, therefore, the soul is actually a minutest, being, and it is in one part of our heart. So that is our soul. So that is nothing but our identity. So as our shastras say, and it is beautifully epitomized in Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna says that to Arjuna, that when you're, why are you crying? For whom are you crying? The body of the people who are going to die in this war will get destroyed, but the soul will always be there. It will never ever go away. So it is permanent, and it is within us. Once the body goes, once it is the end of life, the soul leaves the body, and the body is then declared dead. Till the soul is there, the action of the body keeps there, and the body is not considered dead, even clinically. So we had touched upon some of the other subtle aspects in our previous workshop. So if you have not attended it, please go through and understand this in greater detail. The last point about who I am or who am I is the fact that we have defined it's a soul. But what is the nature of that soul? We said it is a small, it's a minute, entity, and so on. But there is another aspect about the soul which we should know, which is that the soul itself is Swaprakasha and Anandamaya. That means the basic nature of a sattvic soul is that it is full of bliss and full of happiness. Now, because of several births, because of several layers and layers of karma which has got over the soul has become sad, and it is prone to sorrow, anxiety, unhappiness, tensions, and all the other negative feelings. But it's important to remember that the basic nature of the soul is that of being happy. So, therefore, when we look at ourselves, we should realize that that great happiness that we are talking about, that we all seek, is something within us. So now everyone, for example, if you ask everybody, you know, there's a room full of 50 people, and you're asking each person what they really want. So some people will say, I want money. Somebody else will say, I want to be educated. Some people will say, I want to be a doctor. Somebody else says, I want to be a lawyer. Somebody else wants to be an engineer. Somebody says, I want to be a farmer. And several things can be their definition. But if you ask everybody what do they really want from what they are seeking, ultimately what we are seeking is happiness. Why? Because that is our basic nature, that is to seek happiness. That's the natural instinct of a soul, is to be happy. It's only because of distractions that it keeps it moves away from that state of happiness. So the more you bring it back to where it is, the more of happiness it will actually experience. So that is what we are at the at the heart. We are a soul, and that soul is seeking happiness. So this is our definition. So from who am I, we will now move into what is my purpose. What is my purpose? What am I actually seeking in my life? Right? So, first of all, before we get into what is purpose, understanding, it's important for us to understand what is the purpose of purpose. Why should we have a purpose? Why don't we, there are many people who believe, many philosophers who believe this. We don't have to really have a purpose. Keep leading a life. The life will take you wherever you go. That's a very commonly held notion in today's world. If there is life, keep living that life. Live each day as it is, and then you will end up somewhere. Now, this is not a practical and a pragmatic thing at all. Why? Because by nature, the human mind, and therefore, which is coming from the soul, is always seeking that state of higher happiness. That's what we are seeking. So, if we have a good meal in the afternoon, we want a better meal in the evening. If we want, if you have somebody is earning $100,000 in a year, he wants $200,000. He wants to become a millionaire. That's how the human nature is, because everywhere we want more, because we believe that is what is going to give us happiness. Sri Jaitirtha says in Tattva Prakashika that it is the nature of the soul to keep on expecting, total happiness and no sorrow. Now we talked about what people want. Is there anybody in this world who says, I want some sorrow? I'm okay. I'm willing to put up with some, I can put up with some sorrow, but I get good result. No. Our instinct is, can I get happiness without any sorrow? And that is what we define as a state of salvation or moksha. Where we are saying, ultimately, it is that state of absolute total happiness or bliss, which is what is going to give us. So the purpose of purpose is that it gives us direction. So first of all, before we get into even that, one point is clear, that our body and our mind will not be in a state where you can live without a purpose. A human being, a soul cannot remain without it seeking. Whether you can keep quiet for some time, but then again it will start to seek. There is only one state when the soul stops to seek, and that is the state of moksha, as we call it. The other important thing to note about the state of purpose is the fact that purpose drives our innermost motivations in our mind. So, whatever is our purpose, let us say we found our purpose, whatever that is, and we'll come to that little later about how we do that. If one has found the purpose, it affects and impacts everything that we do. Our actions, our thoughts, our hatred, our love, our relationship, everything is defined by that state of by our understanding of what our purpose is. So everything that we do consciously, many times unconsciously or subconsciously, we are moving towards that state of purpose, provided we have either found it, or even when we are seeking it, your purpose will keep on moving in that direction. So that is the purpose of purpose. If you don't have a purpose, then people will be wandering without knowing where they are going to get it. Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing is, we were always told that we are supposed to have goals. Why are we bringing this topic of purpose and messing up the whole things? Are we just playing with words here? The answer is no. These are two different things. Goals are largely temporary, and they are more short term or medium term. But the long term goal for a soul is cannot be something that is intermediate, right? It cannot be something that's small. It has to be something large for it to keep it motivated. It has to be something which is big and something that's profound. That is the purpose. A goal is much more short term, typically materialistic, and keeps changing quite frequently. You ask a student who's studying in class 10, what is his goal? He'll say, I need to pass my examination with flying colors and I want to do well in 10th standard. The moment he's done that, his goal changes. He says, I want to do well in my 12th standard. The 10th standard achievement or whatever he has done is behind him or her. Now they're looking for the next goal. Similarly, are in our minds, throughout our lives, whatever we have defined as success because of our goals keeps changing it. And let us assume for some time that we are moving in our life, more or less achieving our goals. And at some stage, we all have got this question. And here we need to be very sincere to ourselves. This workshop is not for anybody else. It's for all of us individually, for us to think. All of us to think, saying, okay, is this what I am meant to do? Is this my real purpose? Because I seem to be achieving whatever I want, but yet, there is a gap. in my mind, it's not giving me that full satisfaction. Once you've achieved that goal, the goal becomes more or less, meaningless. So people are seeking that higher meaning. So the difference between a goal and a purpose is this: purpose is eternal, it is something that is long term and something that gives you that state of bliss. Whereas goals give us a state of happiness, a temporary, many times they're materialistic, and they keep changing. They are not permanent. But something like purpose is largely permanent, and it is something which drives the innermost motivations in your life. Coming to the topic of motivation, we have seen many lectures. I'm sure all of you have heard that we have seen people who are coming as motivational lecture speakers. They come and motivate us. They come and tell us how we should go after our goals, how we should pursue, how we should work hard, how we should focus, how we should concentrate, how we should never give up, so on and so forth, which are, I think, very good, pieces of advice that we get. But the best part of a purpose is that if you find your purpose, you do not need any external motivation, right? You do not need anybody outside to tell you about your motivation. You are just motivated, you just love it. You wake up and you start working towards it even when nobody is seeing you. You don't do it for anybody else, you don't do it for because of anybody's fear, or to please anybody, or you don't even need somebody to nudge you, right? It is something which comes to you from within. That is your purpose, right? So anything that needs external motivation cannot be a purpose. Imagine, for example, somebody wants to say, I've heard many people who say, I always wanted to write a book. So we say, why don't you start writing a book? No, I don't know, I just don't find the time, I'm so busy. So my question to such people is, if that is so important to you, and that is what you believe is your purpose, is it true that you really don't have time to pursue the most important thing that you want to do? Does a mother ever say that about a child, saying, sorry, I did not feed the child today because I didn't have time? Absolutely not. She will always figure that out, about the fact that somehow she makes time to feed the child. That is because it's a very inner driven goal, and it could be even her purpose at times, which is, we are all born intrinsically with that, right? That is not the case, right? You look at an Olympian. There are enough reasons for an Olympic champion to give up his goals, but the purpose, he keeps chasing it on and on and on and on and on till he gets to that final goal, right? So this purpose actually defines why we exist. Why do you exist? And this question would have come to all of us in different forms. For some people, it is something which is causing them sleepless nights. For some others, it may not be that important, but it will come to all of us. It is just a matter of time, before we get this question, what is my purpose? And you will want to spend time on that. Yeah. So to go back to the slide, Santosh, the next point is about the North Star. We always say this about ships. In olden days, there were no navigation system. The North Star, by the way, it is the same word called Dhruvatara, Dhruvatare, the star which is towards the north and which gives direction to all the ships. The purpose is like the North Star. It sets the direction. And because it is Dhruva means it doesn't move. It is fixed. So the North Star never changes. It's a static star. I know a very interesting point I would like to share here. If you look at this concept of static star, it has got discovered in the last 120, 150 years, saying that this star is actually static. And it's called the static star, whereas many other stars keep changing their position. We know this. But this is called the static star, and this is defined as a static star in the Bhagavata Mahapurana, where it is said that there are some stars which are static, which is again a great example of how advanced our astronomy was, 5,000 years back. Okay, so let's come back to the topic of North Star. So North Star is something which is our purpose. It is something that is constantly guiding us towards the direction, in the direction that we want to go to. And once people have found that and they're moving towards it, they look for solutions to every problem that they face in their direction. There could be some unsurmountable problems, but they don't give up. They say, no, this is important to me. I will focus on it. I will solve it and I will overcome it. Yes, maybe sometimes I might have to rest, saying, okay, maybe this is not the right time, but I will come back energized and pursue my purpose. So that is the North Star. So, Santosh, we go back to the slides. So, it is about the purpose should bring us bliss and not happiness, right? If I ask you right now, what makes you happy? You'll say something, okay, probably, I've just had a good lunch, so maybe a good dessert will make me happy. Or some people may say, oh, it's getting evening. If you give me a cup of coffee, maybe I'll feel very happy. So on and so forth. We all can have our definitions. But that is temporary. Let's say you have coffee right now. What happens? After 5 minutes, you'll forget that you had coffee. This is not that. The purpose gives you that state of bliss. There is that moment when you are in state of bliss. Now, this bliss is the moksha ananda. Can we experience bliss here? Yes, to some extent. There are moments when we can feel and experience this bliss. So it is said, for example, that when you wake up from very deep sleep, let us say you had a good night's sleep, you had a good meal, then you had a good sleep, absolutely no disturbance, your mind was very calm. When you wake up in the morning, 5 a.m., you're absolutely charged. You feel that you're rested, your body feels very rested, and you wake up with a big smile on your face, right? It can even happen sometimes when you take a 15-minute nap in the afternoon. You had a heavy lunch and you just sat down to read some book, but you just went to sleep because of the heavy food. So you go into that sleep and then wake up and you look at the clock and say, oh, it's 10 minutes, but I felt I have slept for 2 hours. And God gives us those experiences about bliss in a short period of time. So yes, it is not the difference between this bliss and the moksha's bliss is the fact that that bliss is permanent and it's infinite in quantity. This bliss has certain limitations, but God has given us that experience. It's like the trailer of a movie. It's shown us what it means to be having that bliss. So that is the purpose that should bring us bliss. Then, very importantly, we said our soul is inside us, and the basic nature of the soul is to be happy. So whenever that happiness or the bliss comes, it has to come from within. It is not something which comes from us from anything external. Very, very important aspect for us to realize, right? Why? Because man today is constantly seeking it from things outside us, right? All of you will agree the amount of time that all of us spend seeking this happiness, the amount of money, effort that people put to seek this happiness. They are going and climbing the Himalayas. They are going and going on long drive, driving thousands of kilometers. Some people go to wellness centers. Some people are taking sleeping pills. Some people are taking mood enhancing pills. Some people are taking antidepressant pills. Some people are finding crazy ways of trying to make themselves happy, right? And experience that, but yet it seems to be evading us. Why is that the case? That is because we are not going in the right direction, right? To get that please, we are always going in the opposite direction, which is away from us. Imagine we take an inward journey, inward us, within us, and then try to find that happiness within us. Maybe it is something like something that is there within us, and we are not finding it because we are seeking outside. So it is a very funny situation, and this is not common. This is not uncommon. There is a saying in Canada where there was a lady who had the child right next to. She was actually carrying the child, and she was searching for it everywhere at home, carrying it all the while. So maybe that's the case with our happiness. It's like borewell water or water in a well. It's within us, and we have to find out what is stopping that water from coming outside, right? So that is what is the nature of that bliss that we have. The more we seek outside, the more it will evade us, and less are our chances to find that bliss. All of us have had this experience, right? When you read a book, very good book, or you are sitting and trying to solve a mathematics problem, and at 11:30 in the night you got the solution, how happy do you feel, right? That is because, did that happiness come from something outside? No, it is your sense of victory and success which comes from, comes from within. You worked very hard towards something and you've achieved it. You don't need anybody to be coming and telling you that you are successful. You know you are successful and you are happy. So therefore, the more we go inside us and within ourselves to contemplate and think what is happening around us and understand what is going to give that true happiness, we were not likely to find it, right? We've set the goal as happiness on our GPS system, and it is showing a direction which is this way, and we are going exactly in the opposite direction. So what happens in our life every time, like GPS keeps telling you, you are on the wrong path, take a U-turn, take a U-turn. The more warnings that we get that no, this is not the way to do it, how will we reach that sense of happiness or that bliss if we don't do that? So therefore, we have to understand our purpose is within us. That purpose, achieving that purpose, will give us happiness. Happiness has got to do with the soul, and that is within us. We cannot go outside. So before I come to the last point, which is to know and pray to God, that gives us that state of bliss. I would just like to explain something which many of you, I'm sure, are very familiar, which is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There was a gentleman by name Maslow. He came up with this pyramid which talked about different levels of motivation that can come to us. So he started with the basic needs, which are the physiological needs, which are absolutely needed. What we loosely call as roti, kapda, or makan. That is what he called as physiological needs. So let me read those things for you. It is food, water, warmth, and rest, and so on. Safe. That is basically our physiological needs. The second one is the safety needs. We want to be safe. I do not want to be insecure. So the feeling of security and safety is the next level. Once you've got your basic necessity, the basic needs are met, you look for the safety needs. From there comes the belongingness and love needs. You just don't, you want people around you, you want people to love you, people to give you that warmth, you have very healthy relationship, you in turn want to love others, and so on. And the belongingness, you want to belong to a community, you want to belong to a family, you want to work with a certain set of company, right? You want to stay in a place which has got a certain community around you. We all need that sense of identity, so that belongingness. Then you have esteem needs, which is to do with prestige and feeling of accomplishment. It is not enough for us to just have these basic needs, but we also want to achieve things. We want to study in a good college, we want to get great education, we want to be academic achievers, we want to be great achievers in corporate world, or whatever we want. Somebody wants to be a doctor, wants to be a great doctor. If somebody is a great mother, she wants to be a great mother. If somebody wants to be gynecologist, she wants to be a great gynecologist, what have you, right? And finally, you have that highest level of need that is there in everybody. That's why it's right at the top, is that need for self actualization, as they call it, achieving one's full potential, including creative activities, right? So this is the way a psychologist will look at it. But for a moment, if you look at our scriptures, they've said it long back, saying that whatever is basic, right, is not going to suffice. So Purandar Dasa's kriti, mancha baradu madadi baradu, kanchu kannadidi baradu. So he said, he tells very simply, saying that the worldly possessions will not be enough Mancha baradu, madadi baradu means mancha is a bed or a cot. Now it is a symbol of luxury. Madadi, that means wife, actually meaning relationships. All these are important for us. Definitely we need them, and there's no need to, forsake them. But they will not lead to that, will be able to give us that ultimate sense of happiness or bliss. For that, the only way is the spiritual path. So I showed you this pyramid just to show you how this has been thought by a modern scientist, and how it beautifully corresponds with our scriptures. Just that scriptures have probably better ways in which we can achieve that state of self actualization. What Maslow did not tell us is how to get to that state, whereas our scriptures are telling us day in and day out how do we actually reach that state of bliss. And one prescriptive way in which our scriptures very clearly talk about achieving that state of bliss is to be able to know God, to study about God and understand God. Why? Because in this world there are a few things that matter. One is God, the supernatural, super powerful entity, and then there is us, the souls, and then there is the world around us, right? So this is the triangle. Now by knowing God, we understand the most important entity in this world. Everything else becomes part of our knowing God, and we understand the world much better when, when we are looking at, when we understand God. So for example, let us say you are in a situation where somebody behaves in a certain way. So we think why, and you get very very angry and say, hey, no, this person not behaved in the right way, let us say. So what do? Normally you would say, oh my God, I should go and maybe physically assault him, or I should abuse him, or I should ask him, I'm very angry, why did he behave in this manner? But somebody who is a spiritual person, who's understood God, will look at it differently. He will say, maybe this person has a problem, can I help him? Why he's behaving like this? Because God asked him to behave like this. Can I do something about it? Can I talk to him about it? Maybe I can. So it's a very different way. Every situation in our life can be looked at if one is spiritual, and this is common. This is common to everybody. We have seen it in our lives. Let us say, unfortunately, you know somebody dies in the family. There's acute sorrow. What do people say? Oh my God. And people are shattered, which is absolutely natural for them. But a spiritually evolved person says, okay, the purpose for which God had brought this soul to this world is over, and that person has left. Now, yes, it takes time. Everybody goes through the sorrow, but they are able to overcome it in a spiritual way. So, feeling of sorrow, everybody will do it. But how do you come out of that situation and understand the broader perspective is spirituality, in my opinion. Also, when we are looking at this topic, there is one thing that we need to know, which is that it's not just for sorrow, it is also for a state of happiness. There are some people, and all of us know such people, extremely successful in their lives, extremely successful in their lives. They get into depression. It's very common. Some people cannot handle their success. So like we say that some people cannot handle failure, there are a lot of people who can't handle success. We say, oh my God, success has got into that person's head. He or she is not able to come on the ground. He's going all over the place. It's very common, and it's very common that some of the most successful artists, some of the most successful politicians have committed suicide. Because of why? Because they succeeded and they don't know how to handle it. Now, if there was a spiritual person, what will he say? I've got my success. I'm very happy with it because God has given me as a gift. How do I use this success for the benefit of others? Let us say I have got a big award because I won such a game, and I've got a lot of money as a prize money. Immediate his thoughts will be, okay, how do I make other people successful? Can I open an academy for people who can also succeed? Or can I give that money to a purpose, to a charity, which actually in turn does good to the other people? Many successful people do it. They open foundations and charities in their own names because they want that to give a part of their success and make it everybody's success, right? So again, that's the difference between somebody who is spiritually enlightened and another person who probably does not have that orientation. It's a tragedy, in my opinion, if a person does not have that spiritual orientation, because the person cannot handle anything. He cannot handle success, he cannot handle failures, he cannot handle, in fact, any anxieties that come his way, because he is not looking at it in a spiritual way. He's reacting to it on a minute to minute basis, making his position very, very weak and vulnerable. So let me come to the last slide, and probably a very important part, which is, after we have understood what is my purpose, we go over to what is, how do you actually find your purpose. This is probably a very important aspect, and we will talk about it in our next workshop as well. But here is how you do it. The Shastras say the first step that you need to do is to take an inner journey of self discovery. As we said, that happiness is within you, so you now have to go inwards. You have to spend time with yourself, going inwards, not outwards. You dig a borewell to get water inside the earth, not all over the place, right? You identify there is water in this place, and then you drill it. So the first one is the study of our scriptures. Our scriptures give us fantastic perspectives about God, about the world, about the soul, about relationships and everything. They are our workbooks, they are our playbooks. It is a masterclass in how we should be leading our life. Let us not look at scriptures as mere things that will give us some kind of punya, we say, right? Oh, if we read this, we get punya. हमको पुण्य मिलता है. Or we say, if I don't read it, probably it's not right. I'm reading it because my grandfather read it, and so on. Yes, definitely you should take inspiration from people who are there around you. But I think what's important, you should do it for yourself. Because at the end of this journey, you will find that state of eternal happiness. And what is more important than happiness, as we have already seen? So first step is about study of our scriptures. We have done a workshop earlier on this topic about how do you study Madhva Shastra. So if you have missed that workshop, please go back. We will conduct that workshop again, represent it in a different way shortly, but that gives you a clear direction about how do you study the scriptures. So after you've studied the scriptures, the next point which comes is about journaling, a very, very important habit. Some of you have done it, might be doing it. If you're doing it, great. Keep continuing it. Don't miss it even for a single day. But if you have not been doing it, you should start doing. So what is journaling? Journaling is nothing but writing a page or a half about what happened to you every single day. This was a habit which our ancestors had a lot. They had the habit of writing a diary, which is, I think, one of the best habits to do. It is highly recommended by psychologists, psychiatrists, and many people who are dealing with the human mind, that journaling is one of the most powerful techniques to express what is going on inside your mind. So unfortunately, there will be a lot of things which are hidden, which we also don't know, right? And usually we don't even know 1% what is going on in our mind. It's all our experience. Oh, I didn't even know. Oh my God, this was there. Yeah, why did I do like that? You go and have a discussion with somebody, and suddenly in a meeting you flare up. You wonder later on, oh my God, why did I do this? I shouldn't have done it like that. So this is the topic of journaling that you should do. So every day, at the end of the day, spend at least 10 to 15 minutes writing down what were the thoughts that came to your mind. It's very important, because it will, throughout the day, we start the day thinking, okay, this is how the day is going to be. Look at it at the end of the day. You will realize that what you had planned and what you had thought to what has happened in the end never coincides. So write a journal. You can write it in a diary. There are many simple apps available where you can also type your daily thoughts. Whatever works for you, use it. Very important aspect of journaling is, after you've written it, you should also be reading it. So you're not just read it once in a week, you can reflect upon it, right? So after that is the topic of meditation. extremely important, because when you're writing, you're still acting. There's movement happening. You're constantly thinking, writing, thinking, writing. Meditation helps you to condense those thoughts. So you may decide to meditate first and then write, or write and then meditate. The correct recommended procedure is to write your journal and then meditate, because all your thoughts then crystallize. And when you're writing, you become more accurate in writing whatever you want, right? Many of us have this question: should I show this journal to someone else? That's your choice. But it is recommended that you keep that journal for your study. Yes, if you want to share some aspects more, then you should do that. But meditation is very important along with journaling. Look at doing meditation at least for 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes late in the night. Then after meditation, it's very important that, when you're on the spiritual journey of self discovery, you need a guru or role model, right? I do not know of a single successful sports person who has ever succeeded in his life without a coach. Even if you have to play at the junior most level, you need a coach. So when you can't win, because in a sport without a coach, I don't know how we will succeed with a with a in a longer term without a coach, on a spiritual journey, which is even more abstract, right? It is more difficult to pursue that than anything else. You go and see a lovely, you go to see the Taj Mahal, right? What do you do? Hire a tour guide, right, who will take you around. And without the tour guide, people say your experience is not complete because you don't know everything. So just imagine what seeing one monument becomes incomplete if you don't have a tour guide. Imagine we are living our life without tour guides. How many things we will miss, how many things we will get misguided. There's no end to it. And yes, our teachers in schools, colleges, etc., are all our gurus. They all contribute to our learning, but we need a spiritual guru. A lot of questions come to us. I mean, how do I find my guru? Right? There is again a special workshop that will be conducting shortly on the role of the guru and finding it. But in short, the real guru for all of us is Lord Krishna himself. Krishnam Vande Jagat Guru. And he has sent somebody like Sri Madhvacharya to be our guru and teach us. And then, of course, great lineage of gurus who are all coming to, within, in the last 800 years to guide us. So you can pick any one of them as your guru, as a Manasa Guru, and go to a learned scholar. God has, will be in that person, on that guru, to give us that knowledge. If nothing else works, even a virtual medium to connect to this source of knowledge, that itself can be a guru. So ultimately, remember, no matter what happens, the guru who's then all the others to give them jnana is none other than Madhvacharya, and within him is none other than Krishna himself, who is giving us these lessons. All the other people are conduits of that, and they give us that knowledge. So once you have understood that, you have a guru, you go through that process. Comes the last step, and not the last in that sense, is to build a community of people who are also seeking like you. This journey can sometimes be very lonely, because not many people are on this path. So if you really want to understand your purpose, you have to build a community of people who are also thinking like you. There could be people whom you meet in the you meet in different places, people whom you are interacting. You can form like a study circle of people who are all coming together, motivating each other, giving directions to each other, and then you all become like classmates who are sitting in this great classroom for education in your path to pursue that state of purpose. Now this process that one follows, right, one can start anywhere, but I would suggest you start with reading scripture. So when you're talking about reading, it's also about listening to pravachanas, listening to discourses, listening to great speakers about what is that great path, and then from there moving into journaling, and then to meditation, and then finding a guru for yourself, and then being a part of a community. So this is a circle. That's why it has been depicted as circle, not as steps 1 2 3 4 5, because it is iterative. if you complete one circle, will that realization of what my purpose is really come to you? May not. It might take several circles or going round this in steps to be able to arrive at what my purpose is. But the good news is, once you find your purpose and say, this is what I want to do, this is what I've dedicated my life to, you don't have to look back. There is no more confusion, there is no anxiety, and you will be very clear about what you want and give that clarity to others as well. Remember, all this is not for ourselves, it is for everybody around us. Because our lack of clarity of what our purpose is actually hampers and decreases their happiness as well. Because nobody wants to be working with someone who does not have the clarity in life. We say, first get that clarity about what you want, okay, before you tell others. So people who are clear, it's very easy to deal with them. It may be a difficult path that they are pursuing, yet they're clear and they're willing to make any sacrifice to get to that ultimate goal, right? A person who, let us say, he says, I want to top the UPSC exam, right? That's his goal, again, not a purpose. uh, and he's works, all night, wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning and studies. Everybody around him must be saying, Arey, what is this fellow doing? I don't know why he has to work so hard. Is he going to be happy? But the fact of the matter is that state of happiness is being decided by that person. Nobody else can decide. What makes you happy, only you know. And we do a lot of things to keep others happy. I think we should find out what gives us happiness and spend more and more time doing that. That does not mean forsaking others. For example, being on a spiritual journey does not mean everybody has to become a sannyasi, or he has to give up his job, or he has to give up his family. Unfortunately, many people make those decisions which are absolutely wrong. Where is it said like this? The Gita again. If what Arjuna was saying was wrong, or was right rather, which is that he should give up the war. He should not be fighting that war. Krishna should have told him, look, let's live peacefully, let's not fight this war. You are right, let's go. He says, no, this battlefield is your dharma kshetra. This Kurukshetra will become your dharma kshetra. A warrior has to fight. An army man who is at the border fighting the enemy, for him that war is for what? For peace, right? Imagine war for peace, but he has to fight that war. He cannot say, oh my god, I've got realization, I will run away from that war, let me stay peacefully, then there'll be peace. No, there won't be peace. The enemy will come inside the country, attack us, and that will happen because that person did not do what they want. So you can pursue a very, very spiritual path without actually sacrificing anything else. You can keep everything and then you know, go along. The same Purandara Dasa, whom I quoted earlier, Mancha Baradu, Madadi Baralu, he says, Adaddella Valide Aitu. So he says, whatever has happened, good has happened to us. Hendati Santati Saviravagali. So he says, let me have a large family, meaning let me have everything in this world. But ultimately, we have to realize that all of them are something that will add to us achieving the purpose. None of it is a deterrent. I was supposed to tell you a story of Sri Trivikrama Panditacharya, but I'm sorry we don't have time because we want to give some time for question and answer. We will tell that story in one of our subsequent workshops. But I like to narrate a personal anecdote. I have a person who I know, a person who's a distant relative of ours, who's a very famous oncologist, a great doctor, and an extremely spiritually very, very enlightened person. Once he had invited Parama Puja Shri Pejavara Swamiji, Shri Vishwesha Tirtharu, for Bhiksha Karikrama at his house. So basically inviting the Swamiji at home for him to do the puja and then perform, and accept the Bhiksha along with several other relatives whom I was also lucky to have been there on that day. So the whole event started, and the doctor, the famous doctor who was a host, he was sitting right in the front watching the puja. Just when the puja was about to start, somebody beckoned to him that he should come, and he went inside. And after 5 minutes, he came. He did namaskaram to Swamiji and God. He didn't talk to anybody. He just went back inside. and within another 5 minutes he came out with a pant and a shirt and he left. And everybody was quite surprised, saying, "Oh my God, he's the host. Why did he do this?" And but he was a doctor, so everybody got an inkling about this is what could have happened. Maybe there is some emergency. So imagine he's the host of the event. Hundreds of people had come, but he just woke up and he went. He performed the surgery, and after some time came back. And the Swamiji on the other side, he asked somebody what happened, and they said, "Look, there is a patient apparently who's in very critical condition, and the doctor really had to go." And Swamiji said, "Okay, fine. I'm sure it must be an important thing. Let the event not stop. We will continue with the event." He completed the puja. Then he gave a short discourse. He had his picture and said everybody should have their lunch. Everybody had their lunch, and Swamiji was waiting for that person to come back. Right? Again, he knew that there is a higher purpose for which he has gone, and he wanted to acknowledge one thing, that it doesn't matter whether you are doing a puja on a saligrama or doing prayers, or you are you're doing your work. Both are same, because why? They have a common purpose, which is to pray to God. Both are prayers to God. So we can pray to God anywhere, anytime, in any way we want, right? So if we all imagine everybody in this world starts doing their work at office and wherever else, everybody does work with the same dedication that they have when they're praying, and look at prayer as the ultimate way of touching God, what a great purpose that would be. So after some time, the doctor came back. He took a bath, and again he, had his lunch, and the Swamiji blessed him, and he said, "You have pursued. You are a karma yogi. You have pursued your profession, and through the profession of trying to save that patient, you actually that was your prayer to God. So you were praying to God there. I am a sannyasi, I was praying to God here. Both of us were actually doing the same thing. So let's keep that as an example about how do you find your purpose. Yes, if you don't have that purpose, even sitting in a temple, in the biggest temple in the world, one can get distracted, because that is never your purpose. So if you are, and one can be in a very very dramatically opposite situation, and yet think about God, and yet be on a spiritual path. So clear that finding a purpose is not that easy as have we have seen. But there is no guarantee that a person will find the purpose or not. But as we start moving towards our purpose, we will realize happiness already has started coming to us. We don't have to wait for that ultimate purpose to come. That is, of course, will give us infinite happiness. But all along the way, there is a milestone that we will reach, and each milestone gives its own happiness, right? So you don't have to go. So when you say, this concept of weekend, right? Weekend is actually Saturday and Sunday, but you start feeling happy when you wake up on Friday itself, because okay, 2 days I'm going to rest. I'm going to do what I want. Probably I'm going to rest and come back for my work next week. But Friday, everybody starts becoming, mind starts to ease for everybody. So you don't have to hit Saturday to start feeling that weekend. You can feel it before as well. So I will now conclude by this thing, just saying that, finding, we have defined who am I in our previous workshop. But and one of the things we said was, we will also look at what is my purpose, because that is what gives that soul which we have defined ourselves to be, to have that eternal happiness, right? So I will close and take the questions that we have.
Thanks, Sundar. Thanks for those wonderful insights that you have shared. To all the viewers, now we'll be opening the session for Q&A. So if you have any questions and answers, please keep posting. You can answer those. So there's one question, Sundar, by Sudhindra Murthy. He's actually he's thanking you for that excellent anecdote that you just narrated. Uh, and there's a question from Sanjeev. He's asking, would there be more than one purpose? He's saying spiritual and Laukika.
Yeah, absolutely, Sanjeev. I think it's a very good question. We have defined it by saying goals and purpose. So all the Laukika you know goals that we have are goals, and definitely people should have those goals. Those goals do not come in the way of you having a higher purpose. So for example, in the example I just gave you about this oncologist, his goal is to be the best, to be the best oncologist, so he's worked very hard to be there. But the other thing is about the purpose that he has, which is that he's using, you know treating cancer patients as a way of serving God. So that is his higher purpose. Whereas his objective is still to be the best oncologist. And that is where and you bring up a very important point. Let's not get confused between the two of them. Goal cannot be a purpose, and purpose is not a goal. A goal is much short term or a medium term objective that we want to touch, and it is largely materialistic. But purpose is that why. So, if you want to understand, it is said that if you want to really understand the deep purpose of everything, ask this question why 5 times. So, you say you want to eat a sweet. Why do you want to eat a sweet? There'll be an answer to that. So on. So, if you ask that, ultimately you will reach that last why that you ask. That is the real purpose. That is the real driver for you to achieve what you want. Hopefully, I've answered that question.
Thanks, Sunder. Moving on, so we have a question from one of our volunteers. Prithvi is asking this question. So basically, like, how do we become sharp towards identifying the warning signs that we are going in the wrong direction? Let's say he's giving an example where a student who wants to, let's say, someone who wants to go on for a trip, but he probably might have some other things to sort of also attend to. Like, let's say both are giving him a lot of happiness. So how does he like sort of weigh both the activities and make a sensible decision?
Yeah. So, Santosh, I missed it a little bit. Can you please repeat the question quickly? Sorry, it
So
broke
so
up
he's
in between.
asking, yeah. So he's asking, how do we become sharp towards identifying the warning signs that we are going in the wrong direction? Because sometimes in search of happiness, we might actually do things which may not really help us in the long run.
So I think your journaling practice should help you there, Prithvi, because clearly when you reflect on what happened during the day, you will realize that certain things that you did are contributing to make you feeling better, and something else your conscience will clearly tell you that what you did there was wrong, and you should cut down on that. Now, the challenge, why is it, if all this is so important, why don't we do it? Because of the fact that we have never thought about it. When you sit with a journal in your hand, with a pen in your hand, and start writing, you have to be very accurate, because writing, you cannot just write whatever you want. Your hands will not even move. So you'll think and write and think and write. At that time, you'll come to know what you did was right and what you did was wrong. We don't need anybody else to tell us. Sakshi is there within that. Sakshi means manas sakshi, as they call. Your conscience will guide you. That conscience is not, the sakshi is not anybody else. It is jivo vinayita sakshi, who is none other than God himself, who is there within us, who will guide us on what is right and wrong. So now the thing is, we have to be aware. This is what is called self-awareness, saying that when you are likely to make that mistake again, your body and your mind will start to warn you. They'll say, hey, wait, there seems to be something wrong. Don't ever do this, because yesterday also you did the same thing. So second day also it may happen that you may repeat the mistake, but third day your mind will not do it. Now, why it? If you don't journal it, if you don't contemplate on it, you will make the same mistake over and over years, and that is what takes you on a wrong path.
Right. Moving on, Sundar, there's a question from Raghu. He's saying, a person committed to Laukika suddenly giving it up to pursue spiritual path. Is it right? Is he doing justice to the initial commitment he made?
A very good question, Raghu. I think what we have to see is that we've defined we define our identity as multiple things, right? Internally, we are a soul, and outside that there is a body, there is a mind, and there is a body. There are certain connections that we have made in this world. We are a part of this world. We are a part of this society. There are people around us. We have certain commitments toward them. They have certain commitments towards you, right? And But this, the pursuit of a spiritual path does not in any way interfere with you having any of those relationships. Absolutely not. And it will actually elevate the concept of your the depth of your relationship with your people. You know why? For example, look at your, let's say you're a father and you're trying to bring up a daughter. So there is a certain commitment that you have, and you'll take care of your daughter, which you're doing it very well. But now you say, no, this is God's child, this is not my child. I need to make my daughter someone who is, useful to the entire society, right? All along you thought, okay, if she becomes a good doctor, maybe she'll join a big hospital and learn a lot of money. You want her to be a doctor. On the contrary, you say, you know what, the most difficult, I hope she becomes a great doctor so that she can probably solve some of the and find the solutions to some of the greatest diseases in this world. Your perspective about that thing changes, right? Nothing has changed because you have a spiritual opportunity to this, right? Everything around you changes because of the fact that you have a spiritual orientation. You will start looking at everything from a different lens altogether, right? It does not impact anything. Nobody is asking you to give up whatever you have. In fact, whatever you have adds more meaning. There's a beautiful and if you look at Dasa Sahitya, they give you a lot of examples, right, where about how that spirituality is integrated into our lives. So Vijay Dasara says, that can you do namaskara to God for 8 hours? You can't do that. So what do you do when you are sleeping in the night for 8 hours? You say, this is namaskara to God, and wake up after 8 hours and say, God, see, I have done namaskara to you. Nobody in this world will accept that is the namaskara. God accepts it. God has accepted it and said, this is a, yes, you have done it for 8 hours. I'm giving you full credit for it. So that's a difference in the way
That's the right
a
Anusandhana.
spiritual person does that. So in the Mahabharata again, there is a very famous instance about in the war where Bhimasena is killing Dushasana. One of the most horrendous scenes in our scriptures, next to probably Narsimha killing Hiranyakashipu. This is one gory death where somebody was brutally killed, not just killed but brutally killed. You know what was Bhimasena's mindset at that time? He was reciting the Manyu Sukta,
So,
and that is why Manyu Sukta Rishi is Bhimasena. He was waiting for Krishna's chariot to come, and he told Dushasana, hey, don't die. Maybe he can't die because his prana is in the hand of Prana himself. So don't die. I'm waiting for Krishna to come. And only when Krishna's chariot, which is Arjuna's chariot, comes there, he kills Dushasana. Because he said, I am performing this as Naivedya to Krishna. And if that has to be done, it has to be done in front of Krishna himself. So imagine everything that we do, we give it we have a spiritual orientation, it will elevate the status of whatever we do. You'll become a much more likable person. You talked about relationships. Everybody will like you that much more. So this is not only for moksha and waiting, so you have to wait till you die. No. The idea is to be a better professional. You'll become a much better professional because you will pursue your profession with a certain sense of purity, sense of sincerity. Here, I gave you the example of someone who prioritized his work as a doctor over a highly spiritual activity which is going on at home. But for him, both are same. So you develop that indifference in some sense towards everything that's happening, saying everything is happening because of God. If something wrong happens, you'll say, I tried my best, I've left it to God. It succeeded, oh great, God's grace. It failed, that's what God wanted. That's it.
right. Sundar, I have a couple of more questions. What I'll do is I'll run through the other two slides that we have and then come back and take these questions.
Sure.
So these are the next workshops that we have in line. So on 12th September, we have this topic on how to achieve one's purpose. The series or the part two session of today's topic, basically an extension of today's topic. Uh, Moving on 3rd October, we have the other perspective on Aham Brahmasmi Tattvamasi. initially we had covered these Brahma Sutra Vakyas initially. So we have other perspectives on 3rd October. And on 17th November, we have the power of chanting, which is Japa, Dhyana, and Tapas. So we'll look into uh, the power of chanting. And 19th December, we have been talking about habits. So, what are these powerful habits that we can, implement to have an awesome day? So, again, based on Shastra, of course, and the way forward. So, our content strategy has changed, as I have told in our previous sessions, that we'll be having a 10 to 12 minute video on Vedic streams and short videos for 3 to 5 minutes, and talks and series, this Dvaita series, Bhagavad Gita series, Upanishad series, Mahabharata series, and meditation series. And a request to our to participants, like if you have any suggestions, topics, or any questions, please do write into us at madhvacharya numerical 4 youth at gmail.com. Like if you want to register to us, please write into the same email ID. You can also follow us on other social media channels, and our handle is Madhvacharya for Youth. So the next topic will be how to achieve one's purpose, which is on 12th September, which is on Sunday, between 3:30 to 4:30. This is my personal question. You were talking about, it looks like this entire process involves a lot of effort, right? Let's say someone is really happy and his journey is smooth, he's loving in what he's doing. Can he safely assume that he's found his purpose?
Yes, sure. The best test whether he's on the right path is the fact that he's experiencing that happiness, right?
Right.
Let me, as I said, even when difficulties come in that way, you still take that in a positive stride, right? For example, you decided tomorrow morning you will get up at 5 o'clock and do the meditation. That's not an easy
Right.
thing. We have to wake up at 5 o'clock. It's difficult, but when you want to do that and when you've experienced it, waking up at 5 o'clock does not make it difficult. Look at these people who run the marathon. Obviously running 42 kilometers is not easy, but they do it, and it gives them, imagine, after all the tiredness, they say they feel energized. How can someone run 42 kilometers to feel energized? That's because there is a they found something which is connecting to a higher source, right?
Yeah.
So yes, I would say that, yeah.
Right. Sundar, you gave this borewell example. So let's say someone is actually digging and then finally finds that this is not what he wants. Should he quit, or should he keep trying to find water?
So he should keep trying, because I think, see, in scientific discoveries, for example, right, we hear this that perspiration is more important than inspiration and all of this. So when we talk about perspiration, what is it? It is about constantly trying to find the truth. If you look at the life of great scientists, if you look at the life of great masters, they have gone through a lot of difficulties to find something, and have not found it, and they faced a lot of challenges. They've faced dead ends, virtual dead ends, when nothing seems to be working for them. You go through the life of Gopala Dasaru, Purandar Dasaru, Jagannath Dasaru. All of them had that, their experience, and we know the life of so many scientists who practically spent their entire life almost discovering nothing. Those of us who have studied the biography of Albert Einstein, you'll realize that there was a moment in his life when virtually everything that he stood for could have turned to be false, because he could not prove it. I will encourage you to see the biography of what he has done. So if you look at it, all of us, only to the seeker will he get the purpose. If one stops seeking, absolutely no way he will get the purpose, right? As I say, rest if you must, but keep running, right? For you to take a pause and say, okay, am I doing the right thing, is absolutely right. And that is where the role of the guru comes. He will never let you go on that wrong path. Obviously, he doesn't want you to go on the wrong path. And if you make a mistake, he will bring it back. Why? Because the guru has the experience, right? Let
Right.
us say you want to visit Delhi for the first time. You're visiting Delhi for the first. Whom will you talk to? Somebody who's been to Delhi,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Guru is one such person who's had that spiritual journey, and he's ahead of you at least. He may not have reached the ultimate goal. And some gurus like Raghavendra Swamiji and Vadirajuru, all of them have reached that goal already. So that is why they are gurus. That's why they are so popular as gurus, because they have taken that journey, met that goal, and they are all set to guide us. That is why the study of the scriptures is so important. The path that they have taken and reached is important, right? They'll give. If you've heard how people give you direction, they say when you go there, Santosh, don't take that left road. That's a dangerous road. If you go there, that road is kacha rasta. It's not there. They'll correct you. They'll give you those junctions and say, when you go there, there'll be board which says Tirupati to the left. Don't go left. That's a bad road.
Yeah.
Go right. It will be a small road, but you'll go front and then you'll join the highway. Something like that will be there, right? Or if you want to
Yeah.
go after 8 o'clock, don't take that road because that road is full of a lot of traffic. Well, that's experience, right? That's what is an experience of someone who's gone there. A guru has already traversed that path, so he knows where the potholes are, where the challenges will be, and he will guide you accordingly.
Is it necessary for someone to be spiritual to find their purpose? Is that a mandate?
Yes, I mean, see, what is purpose by definition? Purpose by definition is a spiritual goal. So it cannot come because of something which is materialistic, something that's there around you. There's absolutely no way that's going to happen. It is something, by definition, purpose is a higher level goal. It can't come through this. For example, no matter how fast you go, the best car in the world cannot take you to the United States from India. You cannot reach there. You need to go by a ship or by an aircraft. And you can't,
Right.
for example, you cannot go and touch the moon, and say that, look, I have a state of the art Ferrari. It will not take you to the moon, however great the car may be. So if you want to touch that, understand the purpose, it has to be a spiritual path.
Hmm. Need not be getting into a lot of ritualistic practices, but you mean to say the kind of mindset that you need
Yes.
to
So
develop.
ritualistic practices help us, and we will see more of that in our workshop on daily
Yeah.
rituals that we plan. But rituals aid us. So, for example, when you do the Devara Puja, for example, or you recite certain shlokas, they enhance your clarity. Because why? Because you're praying to God. You're removing that gap between you and God, and that the different layers of poor knowledge that we have. It keeps getting clarified. So with that, you get more power, and your path to taking up that spirituality, it will enhance. Now it is up to you about how deep you want to take that path, but rituals, which is karma charane, is an absolute must. One cannot give up that. You can tune it to suit his requirements and other pressures, but one cannot give up what are the ordained uh, you know rituals that one has to perform. We'll talk about it more in our
Great.
future workshops.
Sure. Last question, Sundar. What about you? Is happiness as per spiritual world from Girish?
Yeah, what about you
What
is,
about you? Is happiness as per? I think what do you mean by happiness as per spirituality is what I think.
yes, so I think, knowing God and understanding him in as much of entirety as possible. Nobody can understand Lord Krishna and his greatness in entirety, but to whatever extent that person can, that is happiness, right? To think that
Right.
he's a soul, and he's at the service of God, and he has the full blessings of God and full protection of the God, that is happiness. And whatever he does, he's a service to God. That is happiness.
Uh, Thanks, Sundar. Thanks for
Yeah, I
taking
think
me.
there are a few other questions I know we can
You want
maybe
to take?
quickly take. Yeah,
Okay.
there is one thing on journaling I saw.
Ha ha.
Um,
So he's asking, how should, what should be captured in essence?
yeah,
Yeah, in general. Yeah.
So I think one thing I would suggest is please don't overthink on what to write in a journal. Let it be a little free flowing. Whatever comes to your mind, please write it. But I think what you should definitely write is what were some of the feelings that came to your mind when the events of the day sort of unraveled. What was some of the feelings? For example, did you get angry? Did you at some time feel a lot of happiness? If so, what gave you that happiness? If you're looking at anger, what gave you that anger? Why did something make you angry, right? Or why did something make you happy? So, for example, if somebody shared a resource with you, saying, "Hey, you want, you can do this course," they gave you that resource. Immediately, it made you happy. So, why did that happiness come to you? You will question. That is because knowledge would have made you happy, right? Similarly, somebody would have said, "You call this number, and if you want, you can donate blood. They are asking for some blood. Call them. They can. They are ready. You can give that blood." Immediately, you say, "Yes, yes, that made me happy." Why did that happen? Because it gave you happiness because you're helping someone and probably saving someone's life in the process. That is what gave you happiness. Similarly, you donated money to a worthy cause. That gave you happiness. Similarly, you did some excellent work. You planned for a presentation. You made a great presentation. That gave you happiness. So why? Because you have knowledge, you have shared it with others, or you have worked very hard and you're presenting it. So that means hard work gives you happiness. Going deep into things gives happiness. These are the notations you should make. So
Yeah.
go through this. There are many websites which teach you how to write a journal and how to make it meaningful. You can read them to get a better idea, but uh, start today and continue it forever. Even if it's 10 minutes, it's okay. Please spend some time doing that. It's a makes a very big change to the way you think. You will know yourself better, and spend some time, say a Saturday or a Sunday, and say, let me read this and see what all happened in that week. You'll be in for many surprises. There's a
Yeah.
related question which I saw here, which is saying how important is discipline for a sadhaka? If
So,
discipline is not important, is there no alternative without discipline? It's one of the most difficult thing to be disciplined, right? But again, when you are on a path that you want to pursue, discipline is absolutely important. It goes without saying. We sometimes look at people and say, "Hey, that person is not that disciplined. He does things in a erratic fashion, but yet he is very successful." We have seen some people like that as well. So why don't I? Or why do I need to be disciplined? The fact is, the only when you work in a systematic way, you will see results. Maybe somebody is extremely talented, and even without getting everything right, they may be still succeeding. But that is not for everybody, right? They could be,
yeah.
for example, two players, playing at equal levels and going to the finals of Wimbledon. Both are obviously equally talented, but one person excels because of discipline. So discipline is like a structure, and it guarantees that um, that success. Let us say you're building a house. You can tell the people, okay, build a 3 bedroom house and then walk off. Whatever they do, you say, okay, this is what it is. The other one is no. Say there is a plan. This is a way to do it, and it has to happen as per this timeline. And then you end up with a house. Obviously, that will be more to your liking. By chance, the other house also may turn out to be what you want, but that is just by chance. Would you like the most important activity in your life, which is finding and pursuing your purpose, getting that eternal bliss, to happen by chance, or would you like to make it because of a structure? That
Because of
structure
choice.
is nothing but our sadachara. Our conduct from morning to evening is that structure, the daily routine, which all our gurus have followed by showing them the examples and beautifully cataloged it for us to pursue this. Now there is a ready-made success plan available for us. That is what is our scriptures. If we decide that okay, there is something ready-made, no, I will not follow it. Discover something on my own. Best of luck to those people. But structuring discipline definitely helps a lot.
Very. Last question by Sughosh Nagendra is highest order purpose of existence is Nishkama Karma. Do you agree? Any thoughts?
Yes, of course, it is very, very clear that our karma charane, whatever we do, it adds to our spiritual progress. Now, that karma that we have done, if we start to draw something out of it every time by converting it into, fulfilling one of our desires or karma, then obviously you will not get to that spiritual level. It is very commonly given example, right? If you are investing money in something systematically, in a and put it in a fixed deposit, you will get a higher rate of interest. Imagine you don't do that, you keep withdrawing, then they will give you only a savings account rate of interest.
True.
That's a slightly loose example to understand what it is. Nishkama karma means that we do not have attachment to the fruits. Why? Because we have the full trust in God that He will give what is right for us. God's name is Samaha, meaning He will give what is right. If it belongs to you, you will get it. In fact, when you offer it to God, He will give you Ananta Padimadi. Akshayam karma yasmin pare swarpitam. So Dvadasha Stotra says that whatever you have given to God, offer it to God. He gives it back to you infinite times. So which is a smarter investment to do? To invest it in ourselves or give it to God? The answer is very clear.
Right. Thanks for spending in time and giving all these insights. And the request to all the viewers, like, please don't stop yourself asking questions. We know that this topic is quite tricky. Please keep posting your questions. Write in the questions to our email ID. We will definitely answer to all these questions. And we wish all the best so that we all find our purposes soon and have a great journey in life. Any final
Absolutely.
points?
Yeah, I was just thinking today is the Independence Day, right? So it is
Yeah,
truly independence if everybody finds their true purpose. What can give us
yeah,
more independence than that, right? And
absolutely.
I think it is also, independence means independent, means swatantra, and that is an attribute which only God has. So we have to today let us also celebrate it as an Independence Day and Independent Day, because we are praying to the Almighty, right? There are a few questions which I see that we have not answered, but uh, what we have to do is we will definitely ask this. We'll answer this in the next question, next workshop, because that is also on the same topic. We'll hold. You can hold us to this promise. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Namaskar.
Thanks a lot. Thank you all.